back to Project Independence Review, Community Drug Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We are back with Talk of the Town. We just finished up with the fabulous Fran Green talking about all things relationships and just forming connections. And Fran is just such an amazing guest because I think she gives us a lot of golden nuggets, Otto, that we can utilize in any kind of relationship, right? A romantic one, a friendship one, just meeting a stranger, as we know, meeting someone in Dunkin' Donuts, as Fran pointed out. So I think they're good little things to kind of keep in your pocket, and remember. And a lot of it is, it's uncomfortable, but putting yourself out there is kind of the first step for a lot of these kind of relationships.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously very, very good at what she does. And it's not a put on. She's good at it. And I would say that's, a lot can be learned by listening to her and talking to her. Uh, you know, it, when we talk, I mean, there are people hopefully listening to what we talk about. And I always do understand that what we're talking about, there are people who have a lot more limitation than
Mm-hmm.
what we're addressing.
Of
You
course.
can't go to outdoor dining.
Mm-hmm.
You have all to do to get into the bathroom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and those are difficult times and difficult years. And all I can say is I hopefully when I get in those shoes, if ever, who knows, nobody knows what the cards are for us. Uh, but when people get into that mode, hopefully um, they can keep themselves occupied and or take advantage of what's available to them,
Right.
like support from Project Independence, like support from the Library of Congress for books if
Mm-hmm.
you have a vision problem. Try to take advantage of whatever you can take advantage of that's going to help you.
You're
Don't,
right.
don't it's like blow it off. That we come up with a lot of stuff on this show, as does Project Independence, which can be helpful to people with macular degeneration and all kinds of other problems. And I think it's very important to try to make the best out of whatever your situation is. And I'm not, I'll be the first one to say my situation's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I can also empathize with people whose situation is not so good. And, um, the thing there is to try to do what you can to make your situation better. It's never going to be like it used to be. You cannot roll the clock back. I know people, that's what they would like to do.
Yeah, and it's hard,
You know,
because listen, I think we all can be guilty to get kind of stuck in that headspace, right? And that's for anyone, obviously it might be exacerbated as you get older, but I think of any age, you could always harp on, how things were and, what it was supposed to be. And to get out of that, you have to actively work at that, right? And as you were saying, take the initiative to find things that, can help you out. I think we both know people who, that's it, they just want to like throw in the towel. They're angry at their situation. And, I get it. It is hard. I've seen people, I've dealt with it, and I've had family, who have some real struggles. But I think it is important, though, to do what you can. There are little things out there and there's help out there, and to really take that step to connect to someone, whoever it might be in whatever kind of situation, I think is just makes life a lot easier for you.
well, your words that you just said, angry at your situation,
Yeah.
doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't make the situation better. It
No.
only makes it worse. And, um, it's easy to get into any of those
Yeah,
grooves
of
if you
course,
let yourself,
absolutely.
and I'm not telling you or anybody that it's easy to say, oh, everything's great, really lovely. I can't get out of the chair and walk more than 5 feet. I
Yeah.
have a vision problem. Um, Frankly, some people have a hearing problem, which you can do something about. There's just try to help yourself as much as you can.
Yeah,
And
and I think you had said it too. It's like making the best of your situation, and that might sound like fruity, but it is, because some people have a very difficult time, but it's finding some way to kind of make it easier, whatever that might be for you. I think
Y-
is.
I'm a baseball fan, all right?
Mhm.
And not long ago, the Mets had an old timers day. And I saw a lot of the players who showed up at the old timers game. Uh, some of them had a problem just about walking. Some of them had a problem. They could not throw the ball anymore. Uh, so I thought about the mental story that they might have that they're going through. I
Yeah.
mean, here they were professional athletes
Right.
who made it up to the top as far as baseball is concerned. And now all of a sudden, uh, they were physically uh, just about able to get out to walk on the field or whatever. Um, and yet they were there and having a good time. Most of them, I would
Yeah.
say. Uh, so you can't. I played a lot of baseball. Would I play baseball now? No. I would probably hurt myself. Uh, but the point being, you can't do what you did earlier. That's a fact. All right, let's get on with it now. Uh, and
And
there's
I
a
think
lot of
it's
things.
finding something new to do, because there's two personalities, right? So there's a person that might have done it and can't do it anymore and is just angry that they can't do it anymore and they're just throwing it in. But then you have Otto, the birthday boy, because this is your birthday hour, who, the picture you sent me, and Otto, you are talked about, and I've said this a million times, all the time in my household, amongst my friends groups, because you truly are an inspirational guy, and you're a guy who remains active, and you're more active than listen people way younger than you. And I see, you and your friends. You sent me that picture of you guys golfing, and everyone looked great and was having a great time. And I think that that alone just spoke volumes of, finding something that, it was an activity you guys all could do, and that kept you active, which is the key to it all.
Well, I have the good fortune also, like the people I'm golfing with are all about 20 years younger than me and more.
Wow.
Uh, you know, uh, it, it, you know, how did that happen? It happened because I organized it, to be honest about it.
Right.
We've got 12 people that are on like a rotating thing. And how did that happen? I started it,
Mhm.
Uh,
Sounds just like me.
that, the,
I really, Otto. It's and things that
well,
you say sometimes just really mirror my life.
Well, I was always like that as a kid, even. I
Yes.
mean, I was an only child, all right?
Hmm.
So I think part of being an only child is uh, you have to figure out how to reach out. And I didn't have brothers and sisters to play with in the house. So where I lived, I had the good fortune of living in an area where I'd go out of the house at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was always somebody out there
Hmm.
putzing around. We could play some kind of stupid ball game, whatever. And before you know it, I would start a league. We'd have a league. We had a game called Indian Ball. All right, Indian Ball was baseball where you could play it with two people on a team. Uh,
Hmm.
you can only hit to the left side of second base. You pitch to your own man, and you just keep rotating back and forth. And you had automatic hits. So we
There you go.
started. We started an Indian Ball league.
I like it. There you go.
And we
It's
got
just finding
hats and the
why.
whole bit that goes along with it. Uh, so I have to admit that I always had that in me to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know not everybody has that, or Clay. It's just who I am. Uh, sometimes it's not good because I go too far over the top, but
Oh, I
you know,
know. Listen, you're. I feel like I'm looking in the mirror, Otto. I mean, I get it.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we all are who we are, uh, and some people, frankly, um enjoy reading. They can
Hmm.
pretty much read all day. Me, my problem is I like reading, but I don't like to read fiction. I'm
Hmm.
not good at fiction.
Hmm.
I'm too much in a rush to
Hmm.
get through the fiction. Talking about the water and the sky and all that stuff. I can't do that.
I'm with
uh,
you. I
some
get it.
people can, and I give them A for
Hmm.
something that I don't have as a good skill. I mean, although I can read what I'm interested in,
Right.
no problem, but I'm not a good fiction reader. Let's put it that way.
No,
Uh,
I listen. I
but
totally.
some people do, and they love it, and
And
they
that's what
enjoy it.
their love is, and I think that that's it's finding what brings you joy. Because I literally just had this conversation with my mom the other day because she was saying to me, she's like, I would love if I could just sit there and like read my book and just tune out because we have my grandma was that way, my aunt is that way, my cousins. I have like a lot of my family, it's is like that. It's like they like that little solo world where they just like, read, curl up and read their book and can do it for like hours on end.
Hmm.
And it looks so nice. But I was laughing with my mom because the two of us, I will buy these books and have like these grandiose plans, but the problem is my brain is usually on like 10,000 other things that are going on or like, so I can't, it's like, you'll be reading the book, but nothing is processed.
No,
It's just like, it's really,
it's like
so
there's words on that page.
yeah. And it's just because, and I was like, oh, I'm so envious of the people that could just get lost in that book, and we literally, it was just a couple of days ago, my mom and I were having that conversation
But
with
I mean, there's an
about
example of, books like my wife, all right. She exchanges books with people. They put
hmm
their initials in the book
I
that
love
they
that. So great.
read it, and then they give the book to somebody else, and
So
they
cool.
put their initials and they change books. Uh, at one point, she was going to a book club,
hmm
which is a good thing, but they
hmm
hasn't found any that she's been involved with. But the point being, that's a way that you can socially
hmm
interact, and that can be via Zoom,
hmm
virtual. Um, so uh, there are things you can do.
Yeah.
Uh, is it easy? No. I can understand that. I know several people that who's been discussed on the show before.
hmm
Uh, where um, I'll ask, but they don't want to go. Um,
Yeah.
I can't make
No, and
somebody
there's
go.
only, and that's the other thing too, because we've all dealt with that. There's people that you can keep and they're just not, and then that's their choice.
Yeah, it's
Because
a choice. We
as you
all
said,
make choices, all right.
right, and that's at the end of the day, you did your part as a friend or as a whatever family member, whatever it might be, to take that initiative. But if you're not, then it's okay. There's
Well,
only
I
so much I.
I just got the book that guy Ron Roll.
Roel.
Yeah, happiness is a choice you make,
Mhm.
and I started
Mhm.
reading that book, uh, and it's it's about people who uh, a guy who's worked for the New York Times spent a year with six different people who were all like in their 80s and up,
Mhm.
and he tried to figure out what makes them tick in that category. And I'm like into 60 pages into it. And, that some of these people really have a very rough
Yeah.
time. And yet they come up with a reason why they're not unhappy.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so
uh,
great though. I'm actually gonna buy that book as well because that's something I will, because I'm with you. It's these kind of practical, knowledge based things, and then they serve as reminders, for your own self to kind of put yourself in check a lot of times with things.
and also to try to understand other people's situations.
Yeah.
We're all in our own
hmm
pocket. That's fact, all right? What goes on in here goes on in here. That's number one in the world. There's no question. All right. But trying to get a picture of what goes on around you is not a bad thing either. Um, there's a lot in the world. Now, you don't want to go too far out in the world because a lot of the world is pretty messed up. You know? uh, which is another thing you have to avoid is to keep the outer world, which you have absolutely no control over, from messing your
Yep.
outlook on life up. Is
Yep.
there a lot of bad stuff going on? Tremendous amount of bad
hmm
stuff.
hmm
But on the other hand, there's like down in Florida, what's going on with that hurricane.
hmm
The number of people that are trying to help other people
Yeah.
down there out of adversity, it comes strength. A lot of people are doing a lot of good things.
And that's
Um,
so funny because I think about, conversations that me and John had, especially during the height of the pandemic, and and the news was everything was so heavy, everything was negative. There was always some kind of doom and gloom story constantly, and I think, it was so important to say that, there is actually good stuff that is going on and people doing good that's just not getting the same kind of publicity as the terrible stuff that goes on, and I think it's so important to, kind of shed light to that as well, because it's, especially, and I find myself doing that. Like, listen, that was an active choice I made, was like, I am limiting news content. I will do a quick scan here and there on like a news app, check it out, but I shut off all the alerts on my phone. Because it was literally creating anxiety. You would get these like alarming things, and you would just feel, your heart rate go up, and everything would just, get just intense. And it's something that I think is so important to really actively, limit. There's
Well,
some people I know that have the news on all day long. I was like, you're just a recipe for disaster right now.
well, throughout history, it's the people in power that kind of lead the world, if you will, into different paths. And 99.9% of the people would prefer not to worry about the country's borderline. Just leave it where it is. I don't care. Just feed me. Let me enjoy my family and my surroundings, whatever they may be. And unfortunately, we do not have control. We try to have control by elections and voting, but there's an awful lot that goes on that we just have no control over. And it's been like that throughout history. That power thing that leads people to go down the bad path. But you got to block it out, believe it or not. You really do. You got to go back down into your own little world and function within it.
I think like that's the end of the day, right? Listen, we're all here just trying to, make the best of our lives, our situations, and the people we care about, spend time with them, just be an overall good person. We're not asking for anything too crazy. That's what I always say. I'm not asking for like crazy stuff. I'm just asking for, some peace and some solitude a lot of times. But I think these are little things that are important to do. And on that note, we are done with our first segment of Talk of the Town. We'll be back with Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We'll be back.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast, and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to WCWP.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
And then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. Those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence in You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We are in the middle of Talk of Town. It's just Otto and I today on his birthday, and we have a special guest popping in.
Dan Cox.
Pop in for the simple reason that happy birthday, Otto.
Thank you, Dan.
You have been a long-time partner with this show, and we couldn't have done it without you, especially during the pandemic. And as I've said to many people who ask me about you, when I grow up, I want to be Otto Los.
I just think that's what we should get on T-shirts, Dan. I think that's the next anniversary thing I might have to do.
The nuggets and whenever he starts a sentence with, "in my opinion," and then he ends it with, "I could be wrong."
Well, I have to, what's the word? I needed to
Advice.
defend myself.
It's your little disclaimers.
Well, I remember you in the beginning, Dan. You had long hair. You were a semi-hippie back then, almost.
I'm still a hippie. I just don't wear it on my hair. And the nice part about it is, and this is no slight on you, my friend, is I have friends who have hair loss, and they say, "Well, Dan, why don't you grow your hair long anymore?" He says, "Because I can, but I don't."
That's a good answer.
That's right.
But the flip side of that is when you are losing your hair, you say you have a lot on the inside pushing it out.
I like it. See, it's all about reframing, guys. It's reframing.
Like my father, I'm gonna have a full head of hair till the day I die, which is I'm thankful for, I guess.
No, that's it. Whether we want to admit that or not, having hair is a good thing.
I want to warn you. At some point on some Sunday morning, you're going to find me sitting in Field 6 waiting for you guys.
9 o'clock in the morning.
At what time?
9 o'clock.
Not a problem. It's one of my favorite walks. My wife and I have walked the boardwalk there, the 4 miles back and forth, often and very often. It's a wonderful walk. It's a terrific venue to do that kind of thing. But you do it all year round though, too, right? Don't you do that?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen Otto get in there, in some inclement weather going on in the background. I've seen photos.
And you
Well,
don't.
the worst was it was really pouring once, and I had a rain suit on, and it didn't matter. It went right through the rain suit. I mean, it was like it was so bad.
You go out on the beach, or do you just walk the boardwalk?
Oh boy, this is bad. I got to take this.
Okay, we're gonna let you go.
We'll let Otto go. So Dan, it's just you and I. Like the birthday boy is probably just getting calls from all of his celebrity friends calling in, to wish Otto a happy birthday. But yes, we were, and that's an important thing you had mentioned. We have so many great parks and beaches in North Hempstead and even in just Long Island in general. It's something that I think we all can take advantage of. We still have, like that good crisp fall weather right now, that it's not too cold, not too hot. So I always encourage people to kind of get out there and just do, a quick
I'm
little
sorry
walk.
about that, but I had to do that.
You're allowed.
I know I don't like to come on the show, but when it's a birthday and it's a special birthday
Just-
like Otto's,
Right.
I can't resist. So I'll give
That's
the show
right.
to you, but happy birthday, my friend.
Thanks
Dan,
for popping in,
you
Dan.
are a pro and a great guy, and it's been fun watching you over the years. All of a sudden, become a grandfather, and yeah, you weren't in that category 11 years ago.
The only positive thing to come out of the pandemic is
There you go. See? Look at the glass half
Well,
full.
Zoom has actually been positive.
absolutely.
You
Zoom
know?
and FaceTime are my two favorite things right now because I get, no matter how much distance you put between you and your loved ones, you could always.
Right, you could still
Yeah.
see him.
So
Absolutely. Well, thanks for popping in, Dan.
no problem. Happy birthday.
2 weeks in a row, we got him. Wow, I'm just going to keep on creating different celebrations. But Otto, before we dive into just some town events, I was thinking last night, while I couldn't sleep, I was up and I was just hanging out. And I was like, I just want to ask Otto some questions. We're always tooting your horn, Otto, about how we all want to be you when we grow up. And I saw some great things and just some little questions in honor of your birthday. I want to know, what is the best advice you would give to a young person, whether it's your grandchildren or even your great-grandchildren?
That's a good question, which I could talk about for a long time.
It's all right. Dive in.
I think several things. One is flexibility, the ability to adapt to change, which is not easy. And life is an ongoing change. Nothing stays. You go to kindergarten, you go to 8th grade, you go to high school, you do some college, you go in the military, whatever might happen. You get jilted by your first girlfriend or boyfriend. All these things. You get a job where you work for a terrible boss, and all these things that happen in your life. They're not all going to be perfect, all right? So your ability to adapt and learn from those things is critical, in my opinion. You can't dwell on any of those things. And it's not like you don't feel it, you do. I'm talking from personal experience. The worst one was when my first wife died. Was that fun? No, far from it. And it never ends. That never ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go on in a forward direction and not be on the pity pot. The other one is part of the change process is adapting as much as you can to the way it is now. Now, that doesn't mean you have to buy in on everything. We've talked about this on the show, like music. Some music I don't get, all right? And I try to be, listen and say, okay, I get it. But I'm not like, heavy metal or that kind of stuff. I don't get it, all right? Every band sounds the same to me. They all look the same. They're all up screaming, jumping around. I don't get it, all right? But I'm allowed to not get it,
Right.
all right? And you're allowed to do things like that. But you at least try, all right? And then if you don't get it, you don't have to make it bad for other people who like it.
Yep.
And the other one is don't be too judgmental. All right. And I'll apply that to everything, race, religion, major stuff. All right.
Mhm.
You know, and keep in mind that your your entry level in life, and I've talked this before, you have no control over your entry level in life. All right. So don't be such a hot shot that you were fortunate enough to be born into a really decent situation. You could have been born in a very into a bad situation. Uh, you could, and I use the analogy all the time, a shack in Kenya. You know, who says that that didn't happen? What control did you have over that? So don't be such a big shot about how great you are. Um, you know, you were lucky. All right. You were blessed. You were born into a better situation. What you do with that entry level is very important to me. I measure people. My father, for example, was a milkman, right? I consider my father, he was a professional milkman. He wasn't just a milkman. He did really good at his job. The customers loved him. And, um, you know, I don't care what you do. Be good. Try to do the best you can with it. And I can go on, but those are kind of some of the things I think are important. Um, you know, try to, like Fran, she brings up stuff that really relates to communicating.
Yeah, and it's all these,
You know,
and that's why I was thinking it was just, and I love when things work out because it looks like I waved a magic wand and planned it. But having Fran on today on your birthday was just so fitting because I think so much of it just, you have that ability to communicate. I've seen you with your with your children, with your peers, with your grandchildren, and I have a relationship with you, and I'm lucky to be able to call you my friend. And
I'm
I
lucky
think
to have you.
but that's the success of you, Otto, too. You as you hit home, like the point of how important it is to, kind of adapt to the times, and my mom and I talk about that all the time too, is that by doing that and being kind of current and relating to people. Listen, we would love if if grandkids all took the initiative and picked up the phone and would call their grandparents, every week, but that's just not how it works, right? It's a different time. So if you want to have that relationship, it's finding things and knowing about things, whether it is music or some kind of movie or TV show or some kind of pop culture thing, whatever it might be, to find that kind of thing. And I always find those are the most successful people in life, right? So if there's comedians or something or who kind of have adapted to the times, they might have been around for decades and decades, but they're able to stay kind of current. Really, is there a success, to and sustainability, frankly. So I think that's
Well,
a
look at Tony Bennett,
yeah,
uh,
right.
singing
Absolutely.
with Lady Gaga.
Yep.
You know, that's like this end to that end.
Mhm.
You know, in some respects, it's not really different as far as relationships with grandchildren and children
Mhm.
goes. I look back in my family's life, and my father and my mother didn't know each other in Germany, but they both came to this country. Uh, I don't know if my mother ever saw her mother and father again, and she was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
You know, there's no Zoom. Uh, Making a phone call to Germany was like $3,000 back in those days,
Yeah.
relatively speaking. Uh, you didn't fly; you had to take a boat. Uh, you know, so like if you think about what it was like then, today you could stay in touch,
Mhm.
even if they live somewhere else.
Right.
You know, you can stay in touch
Mhm.
uh, with your family and your friends, no matter where they are. Um,
No, you're
it's
so
just, you
right.
know, so it's not really different. In some respects, it's different, but it's better. I have a lot of people I look back in my life now who I used to work with years ago. They were really good friends. I would love to have stayed in touch with them. We didn't have email, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have any of this stuff. So they've gone by. All right.
Mhm.
They got off the train and they never came back on the train. All right. It wasn't like I didn't really like these people. I did. And vice versa. But you lose touch because just it was difficult. You know, you had to make a phone call.
Right.
you can only make so many phone calls. You had to write a letter, you know. So, but you don't have to do that now. If you learn how to do an email and you exchange emails, you can have a very good conversation.
Absolutely. It's
You
so
know,
true.
yeah.
And it's convenient, you know?
What was
It's
your next
something.
question?
My next question, Otto, what advice would you give your younger self? Is there something that you say, if I only knew that when I was 30 or 40, my life would have been different?
Oh boy.
I like that thought.
What advice would I give my younger self? Well, probably to talk to older people more
Hmm.
who knew a lot about a lot of things, particularly family, about things that I now am curious about that I didn't. Maybe I was curious back then about stuff, but you don't take the time. You figure you're going to be here forever, and your mother and father and your aunt and your uncle and whoever, they'll all be here forever.
Right.
So why, try to understand that this is not going to be here forever for nobody. All right. And uh, think about, and it's hard because when you're younger, you're going through everything. All right. Everything is a new thing. And, it, and what's important to you at 15 is a lot different than when you're 85. What's important to you when you're in high school and college and to every level is you always have stuff that makes it more important. All right. You're out running around doing what Frank called the flirting. You're looking for somebody maybe, and now, okay, you get somebody. Now you're going to go through marriage. You're going to go through all this stuff. All right.
Right.
So I'm not too sure I can give you a whole lot of things that the younger Otto would be better off with now. You can't put an old
I
head.
know, because then you think about it too. Would if he didn't do those things, would you be the older Otto? Right. So
No,
these are the
I
thoughts that
wouldn't. I had to learn some
right.
of it the hard way. Uh, did I learn how to be more empathetic? I think I was reasonably empathetic when I was younger,
Mhm.
but did I understand when people died, how it really impacted
Right.
the other people? Sort of, but not really. Well, now I get it. All right.
Yeah.
It's hard. Somebody leave you and they were very close to you and they impacted your daily life. That's not easy. All right.
Mhm.
But it's an example of where you got to go forward.
Mhm.
So the answer to the question is I don't have a good answer.
I like it though. I think that's pretty spot on. And I have to, Dan just buzzed in. He said, "The wit and wisdom of Otto Los. This man should write a book." So Otto, Dan doesn't know, but I bought you a little memoir book. I gave Otto for his birthday, and it has all these different
It's right
prompts.
back
Oh,
there.
there it is.
Otto
It
Hodgepodge.
has all these really interesting prompts. I did like a lot of research looking at ones that were interesting, and this one was really jam packed, and I thought it would be perfect for his family because we certainly know Otto has a lot of wisdom to give people. And
I think the other thing is that, uh, sort of in line with Fran's idea, that there are many people along the way in your life that have an impact on you and what you do in your life and how things go along. So stay alert to those things,
yep,
you
you're
know,
right.
and take advantage of them. Like my world started. First, I'll short story.
Hmm.
I'm 18, just getting out of high school, playing baseball with this guy. He says, I work for an insurance company in New York. Why don't you come in for an interview? Okay. I had no idea. All right.
Right.
So I go to New York, 80 Maiden Lane. I go for an interview and I get a job. So now I'm working for an insurance company. Okay. I'm there until I go in the Navy. I get drafted and I come out of the Navy and you go back to the insurance company because how it worked in those days. All right.
Hmm.
Well, while there, I met my first wife. But also while there, I met a guy who was a salesperson who used to call the insurance company. And he said to me, he says, you probably ought to try looking into sales. So, okay, I never thought about it in my entire life. All right. So, and how did that happen? That happened because I kind of established a relationship with this guy,
Right.
talking to him. All right. And he gets me an interview with a company that's long defunct, but it was a big company at the time called the Dressograph Multigraph. I got the job. And normally you needed college, and they bypassed it. I had like a year and a half at night. So I got the job in sales, and that's where it started. But if I didn't establish that relationship with that person along the way, uh, that would never happen. And then while going through those stages, I worked for some people who were uh, should have been doing something else for a living. And then I worked for some real pros who I learned from and who really knew what they were doing, who ran training classes and the whole thing. They taught sales as a profession, right? And along the way in life, not connected to business, you meet a lot of other people who are very influential in what they do, what their images are, how they help, whatever. So I think not to be afraid to build relationships with people and don't feel like you're taking advantage. There's nothing wrong with it's really networking, but it's networking not intended to be networking. It's
Yeah.
just like establishing relationships.
I like it
And
and being
yeah,
alert, right?
yeah,
Being
and all of
alert
a
to
sudden
that.
you
I
get
like that.
you get somebody who's this is really a great person, or whatever, and you learn from it.
And on that note, we are taking a quick break. We will be back with Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We are in our last segment of Talk of the Town, and we are just talking about I think we're giving a lot of knowledge. I hope people have a pen because I am writing down things that our birthday boy, Ottos, is giving us because I think that it's important, and it's important to take note and just kind of, it's a little reminder, of certain things to do. And Otto, I had random questions that I found out. There's so many. We can go on for hours and hours. But what I did like this question, what was the best decade for you?
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah, right? I thought that was a fun one. I was like,
I don't know if I could give an answer. I'll
Mhm.
do like a lawyer here. I think within each decade, there's some bests. Like I said, in my 10 to 20 years, a big deal was sports.
Mhm.
I played a fair amount of sports. I was okay. I was usually pretty good at all of it, but never really, really good. And we played a lot of baseball, and we made it to New York City Sandlot Championship, which was a very big deal for me in those years. In my 20s, I guess the big deal was I got married and met my first wife, and got into the sales world. In my 30s, we had 3 children. And my 40s were a little rougher because my first wife had just gone. So I now wound up with 3 kids, and I married Bunny, who had 3 kids, and her husband had just died. So I would say my 40s were very different. Married, come home from your honeymoon with 6 kids. Basically. Then you get into your 50s and you start to realize you're getting a little older. But in my 50s, I ended up working for Mars Electronics, which was a blessing, the Mars Candy Company, who treated me very, very well. And then your next thing you know, you're in your 60s, and you look at your mother and you tell your mother, Mom, did you ever think you have a son who's on Medicare? You know, she lived with me at that point, or us, she lived with. Um, and, every decade has its differences. And
Yeah.
it's very hard. I think the one you're in is the best one.
I like
You
that.
know, yeah,
I
yeah,
like that. I'm getting
like
that one on a t-shirt
I'm in
too.
my 80s now, all right? Working my
Yeah.
way out of my 80s, actually. Uh, and um, the 80s have treated me pretty good, you know.
Absolutely.
Uh,
I don't think I've seen anyone do the 80s better than you, Otto. So I'm
well,
telling you.
I've been blessed, and but I've had some good fortune.
Yeah.
I had a couple of hurdles. I had the prostate cancer
Mhm.
thing, and I got through that good and no problem. That's now 13, 14 years ago. Um, so I mean, there's hurdles along the way. You know, I think a key thing is really one of the things is I've been fortunate, but the other thing is I've always been um, conscious of actually going to the doctor
Mhm.
and talking to the doctor truly about what's going on,
Right.
uh, and uh, being part of my healthcare management. And that's true in every decade. I don't care how old you are. You, you don't waste your time and doctor's time if you're going to go to the doctor and not say anything. Uh, you know, be honest. And if they tell you something, you're allowed to question it and do some homework on it. But that's a different track. So anyhow, the answer to the question is, I think the decade you're in is the one that's the best,
I like it.
and the decades that you've gone through, uh, you had a lot of things that truly were great always, and you had some bad things that happened during those decades, and that's the way it's going to be. Uh, the train ride goes through all those decades, and
Hmm.
all the people that get on and off in those decades are plenty. For either they get off because things change, or they just get off. Period. Uh, you know, um, there's no. I don't have any real magic solution here. I think being open-minded and trying to understand other people's situation. You don't have to be like, without getting into real controversial topics. You don't have to understand why certain people go in a certain path,
Hmm.
but you have to respect the fact that that's how they feel, whether
Hmm.
you understand it or not. All right.
Yep. I
I'm going to
agree.
tell you a story, which is a true story. Um, a nephew of mine was gay, and this is back in the 80s,
Hmm.
and he wound up with AIDS when
Hmm.
AIDS was a big, big, big problem.
Hmm.
So I visited him in the hospital. Now, back in those days, there were a number of family members that were not too good about it. All right,
Amen.
they didn't get it, um, and I went to visit him. I bought some sandwiches. He says, "What are you doing here to me?" Uncle Otto. I said, "Well," and it's true. I said, "You were always very good to me when Ann and Annette died. You
Hmm.
understood, and there were other people that didn't handle that too well either." All
Yeah.
right, so I said, "You were always good," and as far as that goes, right? And then, believe it or not, and this is like 2 weeks before he died, we got into a whole conversation about being gay. And I told him, I said, "Look, I don't understand the whole thing." And he told me, he says, "Look, we don't understand, but that's the way it is." And I
Hmm.
said, "I get that, so onward." So, but I think trying to be like that with
Hmm.
people who are not the same as you, don't think the same as you, uh, try to uh, get it. you
Hmm.
know, don't be such a pompous, judgmental person.
Yeah,
You know.
I'm with you, my friend. I think that it's important. I think it's important to navigating life, and it's certainly keeping your sanity, by being that way. Because I'm telling you, I got some really opinionated family members, um, and I might not always agree with what they say, but I'm always the person who will listen, right? Like I will give it a shot. I'm very non-confrontational in those kind of aspects, and I think it's okay to sometimes agree to disagree on stuff. It doesn't
Well,
mean.
I think the older I get, the more that I am in that camp,
Hmm.
right? Where I will say, "Look, this is going nowhere. So
Yeah.
let's just agree that we don't agree,
Right.
and let's not talk about it.
Yeah.
And that has gotten really bad over the last number of years with
Yeah, of course.
politics. Uh,
Of course.
there's no sense arguing with some people because you're not going to change their viewpoint. So what's the point? If you're trying to jam your opinion down my throat, uh, so it's not going to happen. And unfortunately, that's true about a lot of topics.
It is.
You know,
It is. It
all
is.
the topics that they tell you shouldn't talk about, politics, religion, but half the wars that are started in the world are because of religion.
Yeah.
Somebody really, really believes what they believe. That's great. You can believe what you want to believe. And we should all be allowed to do that without trying to force that on me.
It'd be just
What,
such an easier world. I feel like on this radio show, Otto, we just sit here and we just solve the world's problems. If they only really just followed
yeah,
what
but
we
if we'd only
say.
get people to listen,
if we had
the
everyone
people in
listen.
power.
That's what exactly. That's what
Mhm.
you're talking about. Like, so Otto, before I go into some events, is there any final words of wisdom and knowledge from the birthday boy that you could? I mean, you've given us so much. I really have been writing down stuff on my paper, so you would laugh at me if you saw my paper right now.
I would say one other thing is family. Um, if you are fortunate enough to have a family, uh, and if you have family and they maybe not around you, or maybe you've had a dispute somewhere along the line, uh, I would encourage people to try to patch things up somehow. Uh, not everything is always perfect with family, but communicating and trying to have a give and take and an understanding and maybe an agreement that we don't agree. And let's say we're just going to leave it at that. All right. But we can move on about other things. So I believe family is very important. Um, to me, it's very important. Again, I go back to being an only child and, no brothers, no sisters. And I have to say that there were times where I wished I had brothers and sisters, but I think I've managed to have some friends and whatnot
Yeah, who become that way,
who have become like brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Absolutely.
My kids and my grandchildren and whatnot are all very important. And frankly, good friends are also important.
Mm-hmm.
They're like family that are not family, biologically, uh, but good friends become like family,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. So anyhow, that's one other word of
I
I
agree.
think family is very important.
I agree with you, my friend. Well, you really are just full of knowledge. And I think that, listen, I think you really should, in this decade of your life, think about writing a book because I think you have a lot of great things to say and certainly beneficial words of wisdom for people of all ages. So that's my 2 cents. I will gladly promote your book.
Thank you.
And be the first one to buy a copy out of when you sell it. But
That'd be 2 books, then I'd buy one of my own.
there you go. We got it. Listen, I could have a whole list of people. I know a lot of people that would buy an Otto book, and I'm sure Dan is one of them. So happy birthday, my friend. I love you very much.
Oh, thank you.
I
And I
hope you're
love
going to have a
you.
lot of
Yeah.
fun, celebratory things with your family. But yes, so on that note, another thing that will tie into the birthday boy is staying active and doing things and attending things. And North Hempstead certainly has a lot to offer. Unfortunately, if you are listening to this show live, today is Friday, September 30th. Tomorrow was supposed to be Fall Fest. Unfortunately, due to the weather, they had to cancel it, and I feel horrible for them because the amount of work that goes into Fall Fest is a lot of work. So they hopefully will figure out some kind of other little event to do instead another day, but that is canceled. So October 1st, Fall Fest canceled. But there are a bunch of Halloween events that will be coming up, and we have 2 different senior Halloween dances that will be happening Friday, October 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Fusillo Park. That's in Carl Place. And then on Friday, October 28th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Clinton G. Martin Park. That will be another Halloween dance. And there's a light lunch serve, there's activities, there's dancing, there's music. It's a really fun time. I encourage people to attend if you are interested and in the area. Call 311 or 516-869-6311 to register for that because you must register. And then, of course, I love the events that are kind of fun for all ages, right? So there is the Spooky Walk, which has been going on for many, many years. And that is going to be on Friday, October 21st and October 22nd from 6 to 9 p.m. over at Clark Botanic Garden. And that's in Albertson. And then they have the Not So Spooky Walk that is the following day. That's, for little younger children. So that's at 12 p.m.
Let me mention something that I have been doing for the last number of years, which is not in the town of North Hempstead, but it's not far away. It's in Little Neck, and there's a Queen's Farm in Little Neck on Union Turnpike. No, yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
Union
I think it's
Turnpike.
Union. I think so.
And they have a corn maze there in the month of October, which I have been doing again with family, and we break it up into teams. Depends on who can make it. There's like 8 people or 12 people, and we have teams competing with each other. But that's
Love
a
it.
pretty good fun deal.
It is fun. I've
Yeah.
done a lot of corn mazes, and it's certainly fun. And there's a lot of great fall activities because, as I said earlier, we're at a time when it's not too cold and it's not too hot, so you have that like sweet spot of being able to do things. And then the leaves are changing. You give me colorful leaves, I am happy. And of course, everyone, if you listen to the show, knows I love Halloween. I'm already fully decorated indoors for Halloween. My husband and I have to do the outdoors, but since this weather is a little iffy, we're going to have to hold off on our outdoor decorating for Halloween. But, as I mentioned about the Spooky Walk, that used to be a childhood favorite. I grew up in Roslyn, and my mom would always take my cousins and I to the Spooky Walk. So there's definitely a fond memory. And I have a picture somewhere that if I could find it, maybe we could put it up one day. But I had like the cutest little outfit on. I was very decked out for my Spooky Walk experience. Little did I know that many years later I'd be working for the town of North Hempstead. But there's a lot of, and it's really great for the whole family. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. And then they even have on Saturday, October 22nd at 11 a.m. at Michael J. Tully Dog Park will be the Halloween, where you could have your dogs in costumes. There'll be all different kinds of little costume contests and activities for the dogs, and I think there's prizes being given out. So that's really fun, and people really love that. It's a very well attended event. So
When is that?
that is October 22nd, Saturday, October 22nd, Michael J. Tully Park,
The hours?
11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the Halloween. And then what they're doing, and I think this is the first year, which is really seems fun. It's called Clark After Dark, and there's going to be little scary movie nights going on. So it's going to be starting on Friday, October 28th at 6:30 p.m., and that's for all ages. It's suitable for. And then Saturday, October 29th is for older audiences. So that's probably a little spookier. I'm dying to know what movies they're going to be playing. That's going to be at 7:30. So as I get more information, I will certainly let people know because it's fun. It's fun to have these town sponsored kind of holiday events that will be going on. October 1st, so I believe they're still doing it because this is indoors. There is the rabies clinic. That is free for dogs, cats, and ferrets. You could bring them and get their free rabies shot at the town of North Hempstead Animal Shelter, and that's on Merino Avenue in Port Washington. So I think that's really important. It's important to keep up if you have a dog, a cat, or a ferret to keep up with that. It's tomorrow, October 1st at 10 a.m. To 12 p.m. So definitely check that out as well. And now, Otto, which also seems really fun, is the Autumn Treat, which is Friday, October 14th at 7 p.m. This is at the Clubhouse at Harbor Links in Port Washington. The Autumn Treat features different kind of fall treats, desserts, assorted cakes, ice cream, coffee, tea, apple cider, and some other little like pastries. There will be music there. So you can call 311 for more information on that. There is a slight charge for that event. So call 311 to get more information on that as well. And then I always want to remind people because we are approaching the end of the show, to call 516-869-6311. Project Independence has tons of social groups, different support groups coming up. We have all of our older groups, that have been meeting for a long time. But I just want to remind people there's some new ones, and that is there's one called Coping with Loss Support Group. That's going to kick off on October 12th. It's in person at the Hillside Library, so definitely check that out. And we are running out of time. Please tune in next week. We have on Monica Harrell, who will be discussing aging gracefully and combating loneliness. Otto, happy birthday, everyone. Thank you for listening. This has been Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. See you next week.